so much for joining me on this project. It means a lot, and I am certain that a lot of students will be happy that we're having this conversation. So for people who do not know, the person I'm speaking to, this is Professor Steve West, but I have the privilege of calling him just Steve. Steve is the Vice-Chancellor, President and CEO of the University of the West of England. You have a longer bio than that, but I would save our audience the stress of having, to go through all of it. Yeah. Did I miss anything?
No, not at all.
So my first question for you today is, as a leader, how do you see yourself as part of the conversation on equity, race equality, and standing against every form of discrimination there is in the university community?
Great question, and it has to be front and centre. It has to be absolutely leading that discussion and debate, not as an expert, but as a human being and as a leader. Universities are wonderful places, and what makes them wonderful places is the people. And I'm a great believer that talent is everywhere and anywhere. And the job of a university is to help, I guess, bring that talent to the fore and to help all students and staff thrive and flourish in what they do and help them realise their ambitions and dreams. And if universities are about anything, they're about that. They're about creating opportunity and making sure that there is a fairness across everything that we do. And I'm a great believer that there is only one race. It's the human race. We're all the same. And we all have emotions. We all have the same feelings. So how do we make sure that we have an environment within which everybody can thrive and flourish? And my job as the Vice-Chancellor and a leader is to try and help that happen and to listen hard to the multiple diverse voices that we've got across the institution and then try and make it right for everyone. That's the job.
Do you find that challenging sometimes, considering like the diversity of our student community and I dare say trying to please everyone? Is that difficult?
It's difficult, but it's not something that you can shy away from. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. So I think that sometimes it's probably frustrating, and it's frustrating because I want to move much faster than perhaps the rest of the university can move. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. But let's be honest, that diversity, that richness, that really makes this place buzz. And that's what 100%. Makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't it be dull and boring if everybody was the same? If we all had the same views,
yeah.
It's just, and I want to learn. I want to carry on learning. I might be old, but
are you old, Steve?
Yeah, very old. Very old.
Do you want to disclose your age? GDPR.
I'm 59. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Very, very old. But so that there is difference. Of course, there's difference, but it's how do you work with that difference, and how do you really celebrate that and make it work to create the sort of place that we want to be? That's the real trick. So it's sometimes hard, but let's do it. Let's do it together.
Yeah. And I think what you said about it is not one race. It is the whole human race. Someone said that to me a couple of weeks ago, and that stuck with me because that is the reality. But it is obviously a sad thing that people try to create segregations, and it shouldn't be that way at all. No one should live a life where they feel like they don't belong in a particular space, or they can't sit with particular people. It's absolutely wrong. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. And that's the bit that's frustrating, because it doesn't matter what makes you different.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't be how you're then defined, and shouldn't be the limiting way in which you can then engage with others. That's really wrong and frustrating. And I think that, you know, in the end, that's what we have to tackle.
Yeah.
So whether it's, you know, I'm different because I have poor mental health, or I'm different because my skin color is different, or because whatever, those things, cut through them, because in the end, we're all the same. I guarantee that everybody will have had the same sorts of emotions as everybody else. And they'll all be amplified in different ways, and they'll all come to the fore in different ways. But human beings are, you know, in the end, we're the same.
Yeah, yeah. Irrespective of color, definitely. I think that moves us on to the next question. Have you ever had an experience of being an active bystander?
And by that, you mean challenging when I've spotted something that is wrong?
Yes, yeah.
Good. Yeah, all my life, really. So I've probably, and it goes back to, I'll share this because I am very, very old, but when I was at school, we had, in my comprehensive school, there were prefects. So the senior...
I have that too, yeah.
You had that too, okay.
Yeah.
And there were senior prefects as well. And I happened to be deputy head boy. And head boy was a chap called Clive. And Clive was Afro-Caribbean. Great guy, really great. And he was the first black head boy within the comprehensive school. And it was a time, long time ago, that was a big thing. That was a big thing in the school. And he really had, to start with, had a really tough time with other pupils who thought that he shouldn't be there.
I see.
And my view was, that's wrong. That's not what this is about. So I worked with him, and really from that point, I guess it challenged me to understand that actually other people don't necessarily see the world in the way in which I saw it. It was just another friend that we were working with, and that was great. But some others didn't see it that way, and that really frustrated me. So I stood out and said, this is not right. We need to work together. So that was the first time. And then I guess as I was going through my training as a clinician, it was that sense of everybody in healthcare needs to be treated the same. And again, I saw some colleagues in health who treated people differently, whether it was colour of skin or whether it was their views. In the end, everybody deserves the same level of care. And I always used to say, look, this is about what would you want for your family? What would you want for your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother? How would you want them cared for? And if you do it that way round, then you won't go far wrong, because then you'll be delivering excellence in the right way. So I've stood out a number of times where that hasn't been right. And in the university, again, let's be honest, the attainment gap that we've seen in performance of students across the university, again, isn't right. No ifs, no buts, it's not right. So standing out and saying very clearly, this is not acceptable. There is no excuse. We have to work together to ensure that everybody who is in this university is included and can thrive and flourish and do the best that they can possibly do, regardless.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally is a value that I really believe in. And more than that, we're not doing our job if we don't deliver it as a university. So let's not make excuses. Let's not get into a place where everybody says, oh, well, it's this, that, and the other. No, we've taken students on. We've said these students, all students, are capable of achieving. Our job is to make sure that we support them to achieve and then recognize their skills and abilities in a fair way, transparent way, that demonstrates the worth of that work that they've put in. And if we can do that for everybody, then we've done a good job. But I don't think we should just accept that we can't do that, or make an excuse about, well, it's all too difficult. Rubbish. We can do it, and we will do it. And that's about working with, that is about working with student bodies. It's about working with staff. It's about changing culture, perceptions. And that's not necessarily going to be easy.
No.
Society, what we have in the university is a reflection of what we have in society. So let's work together to make it a place where people can feel, as you said a few minutes ago, people can feel that they belong.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the major part of what we should do.
And I think it's difficult when people come up with excuses that it is the norm, and that is, there's nothing that can be done about it, because what we are saying is we can get there. It's not going to be easy, but it is possible if we do try different approaches to it. And it's about, making sure that our students are aware of what they need to do to get there. It's equipping them with the skills and information as well to get to that place that we want them to be. And like you said, the university community is a reflection of what our society is. So if we're not giving them the right information and the right skills, how do we expect them to cope outside UWE Bristol?
Exactly. And we're preparing people for life. We're preparing people. In my heart of hearts, what I want is for every one of our graduates to leave knowing themselves, knowing, of course, the subject that they've studied, but a passion and a desire to do the right thing and to continue to learn. And that's how we'll get change. That's how we'll get understanding. That's how we'll get change.
Yeah.
And everybody deserves that chance. I mean, I have to say, I will never know. I will never understand as a white guy what it is to have a different coloured skin, to be black, because I can't get into that. But I can understand through conversations, and I can understand through interacting with colleagues and students some of the barriers that they've experienced, and then work through, well, how do we not get into that place? And I guess it comes from, when I was at school, I didn't do well at GCSEs and A levels. I was written off. I was the student who really wasn't going to make it. And it wasn't until I realised that actually there was a belief in somebody who said, no, you can do this. And they then gave me the confidence to go on. So that isolation, that writing off, I've had an experience of, and I don't want anybody to have to go through that. And I guess that's my drive behind the scenes. Because, everybody, even if it comes to them a bit later in life, people should have the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think always having, not everyone does, I can't assume everyone does, but always having people around you who genuinely care and are ready to, motivate and encourage you at your lowest point is so key. It is. So moving on to my next question. With the Black Lives Matter campaign, what are some of the things that have changed for you personally?
So I guess, like many people, the trigger point for, sorry.
It's okay.
The trigger point for Black Lives Matter, I probably went through similar emotions to everyone else. First of all, anger of what I was seeing on the TV and on the news, but also then a reflection, because that's not the first time that we've seen that. I mean, this is layered over and over and over again in different ways, and maybe not as stark as was recorded and then played. And I guess for me, it was a trigger point to say, look, this we can't just stand by anymore. We can't just assume that this is going to get better without us really working effectively together. This is everybody's problem. It's not just a problem to be solved by a few. So that was the first thing. The second thing really was a hard question for me, which was, right, what are we going to do in the university? Now, I can't solve what's going on in America.
No, you can't.
But what I can do is get it right for the community that means the most to me, and I have the opportunity to change and shape. So that was about, I guess, an honest mirror up in terms of, well, what haven't we got right, and what do we need to get right, and how are we going to go about it? And so you will have seen over the past few months some fairly big changes and some big announcements to get some focus on attainment gap. But it's not just about attainment gap. It is about culturally, how do we change what we're about as the institution, and how do we engage voices across the university to better understand and co-create a different future. So that's that, I guess, and I've taken that right the way to the board, and the Board of Governors, as you probably know, are very keen to change the shape of the Board of Governors and the diversity on the Board of Governors. So that is a big, big shift, a big moment for us, which I don't want to lose momentum on. I want us to keep building on that, and not shying away, I guess, from some uncomfortable truths. Because if we don't face up to those, if we say, oh, well, you know, let's not worry about that, we'll miss an opportunity. And I'm not prepared to do that.
For you, like, we're having this sort of conversations with whosoever is in the room, do you ever feel uncomfortable by any chance?
Again, I'll be honest. I think there is a fear probably in all of us, which is this is so important. How do you have the open conversations without falling into a trap? And how do you do this in a sensitive way that isn't that is honest and authentic, but recognizes we haven't necessarily got all the answers and we don't necessarily have all the understanding that we need? So how can we work together? So sometimes, I guess, there is a fear of saying something that gets misinterpreted. And I suspect that's probably something that we've all got, because this is so important and this is so raw, I guess, to some extent, in some communities, that I don't want to make it worse. I want to add value to this, but I'd be the first to put my hand up and say, look, you're going to have to all help me understand from your different perspectives, your different cultures, what it's like for you, so that I have an insight into your lived experience, and then I can understand and try and work to create a better lived experience for everyone. Because that, in my head, that's what inclusivity is about. And if we say we want to be inclusive and diverse, then the challenge question is, well, that means everybody is comfortable and has a lived experience that's authentic and engaging, and a lived experience that is one that they're proud of. And that means understanding it from different perspectives.
Yeah. I think for quite a few students, for whatever be the case, they may assume that certain things are just words on paper. They never see the operational side, the operational results. How would you communicate to those students? What would you say to them to show that, oh, this is what the university is doing? I understand that the student union definitely has a part to play in that, because we have our com side. But coming from you, what would you say to those students?
So I would say to the students, don't be afraid to speak out, and don't be afraid to ask and challenge. It's really important that we don't assume we're getting this all right as we go forward, that actually we've got some checks and balances on the way. There are hard targets. Unfortunately, some of those hard targets are annual targets. So it's unlikely that we would see big shifts in attainment gap, for example, because you don't see it until the end of an academic year when you see the results. So there are some checkpoints on the way, which is, okay, well, if we're doing continuous assessment, so we've got assessments being submitted, we can profile those. We can get some insight into what's happening within that environment very, very quickly, and then hold module leaders and program leaders to account for understanding what's going on as it builds up to the end of the academic year. I also think that the open conversations and, me talking to students, I mean, I mentored 2 of the VPs last year. I have to say they mentored me a bit as well. There was a bit of reverse mentoring in there with Joey and Josh. Yeah, they they challenged me about leadership, and they challenged me about understanding the world from a student's eyes, because it's a long time since I was a student. And they talked to me about their ambitions, their hopes about the future. So I want to do more of that. I want to try and get into a place where we're comfortable being reverse mentored and offering mentorship and coaching, and coach each other. Absolutely. Because that breaks down barriers. That really allows some honest conversations. And it's, we shouldn't be afraid of that we should embrace that. We should celebrate it because that's about trust in the end. And it's about a respect and a trust that allows us some safe space to do some of this thinking and to do some work and to try a few things out. And I'm very clear that that means that we might get a couple of things wrong on the way. But if we're doing it together with good intent, and we're honest and we spot when something's gone wrong, let's say that's not working, we need to reset it, and then reset it together. So shared ownership on this.
From your point, what would you say to students who are joining us in September, those who still plan to join us? I think, a lot of people know Bristol, but the name of Bristol has gone around even more since they pulled down Colston as well. So what would you say to those students?
So you're coming to a multicultural city, and it's a city that is changing. And I think that's good. It's a very diverse city. And it's a city that is big enough to understand that it has to change. And I think that's really positive. And Bristol is made up of lots of very diverse districts. So there are parts of Bristol that are very old Bristol, sort of the Clifton parts of Bristol, and they're very traditional, and they're very different from Stokes Croft or other parts of Bristol. So it's a very diverse community. I would want students to experience that diversity, to throw themselves into it. I also want students to challenge as they're doing that, and ask themselves some hard questions about what do they want to get from life? What do they want to achieve? What do they want to do both within the university and then the wider community, and what part can they play in that wider community? Because you said it earlier, one of the important things is that students, when they leave the university, first of all, they have no regrets. And then secondly, they've learned what role they can play both in society and in the workplace and within the disciplines that they've studied, that they're passionate enough to want to engage and do things in a positive way. So come to Bristol. It's a great city region. Explore it. Try to see the diversity that's there and engage with that diversity. I mean, it's a really... Pride this year is not happening in the same way, but that is an unbelievable experience, which is does sum up Bristol, does sum up the diversity of Bristol, but there are other events that will happen over the course of the year, which I think hopefully inspire students and challenge them about their own perceptions and their own thoughts. So that's I think what Bristol has to offer. And then I do want students to commit really to the university and to commit to learning. If students are coming here and they really aren't sure about the work that they're going to have to put in to study and succeed, then they might have made the wrong choice. Coming to university, it is a balance between working and studying and getting your heads around it, and you know that better than anyone. You don't come out with a first-class degree unless you put effort into it. And if you're prepared to commit and you're prepared to put effort into it, you'll succeed. But if you're coming for what I would consider to be the wrong reasons, you're not ready for it, and you think it's going to be Club 1830 for 3 years, that is a waste of money and a waste of your time. Because if you want to do that, that's fine, but you don't need to come to university to do it. There are cheaper ways of doing it. So don't lose the opportunity to study, work hard, but also have fun and explore. This is where student unions are brilliant. Explore different opportunities, clubs and societies, and meet people that perhaps you haven't met before through those clubs and societies, and explore what makes you tick. That if you do that, then you haven't wasted your time. But you do have to put, you have to put the work in.
Absolutely.
And those that do, I'm really pleased, because they usually shine and they really succeed. Yeah.
I think just on that note, I think there's no way of sugarcoating it. You can indeed have fun. You can indeed have like the best time of your life at university, but you need to put in the work to get the result that you need. Final year compared to my first year and second year was completely different. And just as an international student coming to this country, I never thought that I would be seeking part-time work, but I don't regret doing that. And I think even when I decided to do that, figuring out how I was going to balance the work and study life was hard. And growing up, my mom always, told myself and my siblings how she did this and did that to pay her school fees. And anytime she said that, I was always like, what would I tell my children? Because it feels like I have a silver spoon, but I need to also find a way to like work hard as well. I don't think there's any way of sugarcoating it. It is indeed possible to experience it all at Bristol. And I think that's one thing I like about this city. You make it what you want it to be. But I think the city is transforming into something bigger and greater than what we can even imagine now, and there is so much room for growth. And I would like our students to know that.
I also think that for international students, I'm always blown away by international students who give up a life to come to another country to study, and it is a big jump into the unknown, a huge jump into the unknown. And I really admire students who do that. But the ones that, obviously then go on, like you, to achieve, and not only achieve, to then throw themselves into leadership roles, which can be quite lonely and quite daunting, that is incredibly powerful. So the role models that the students can provide on that journey are really, really important. It's great to see when that happens. So I would encourage students not to feel shy about putting themselves forward. Try it. You never know. You might be, unbelievably good at it.
Over the past 20 years, how is UWE Bristol, becoming a much more inclusive space for our students?
Good question. And I've been here 22 years, I think.
I couldn't remember the number, so I just put...
A long time, 20 years. And over that period, the university's got much bigger. it's way more international and global than it was 20 years ago. It was a very provincial university. It was a very regional, local university. And it didn't have really didn't have a significant high proportion of BAME, BME students or staff. Slowly, over time, that started to change. The challenge, of course, is that it's not necessarily evenly distributed across all programs and all parts of the university. So there are still program areas which have not got that diversity, which I think is a real shame. So the journey that we've been on has been around a more diverse staff and student population, certainly more internationalized, more global, and a better awareness, I think, of the power of universities to support diversity in a positive way and to learn from that diversity in a positive way. If I think back 20 years ago, it was a predominantly white middle class environment. And what's happened successively over time is with widening of participation, with opening up access, both for home, domestic markets and international markets, what we're seeing are many more people having opportunity and then being able to follow that into a university. And that's brilliant. That's great. And I worry about anything that potentially limits that by putting number controls back in place. What we've seen, if you lift those number controls, then you have better participation. Now, what we need to do is to make sure that the attainment through that is improved so that we have a better pull through for that attainment. And that's something that we're working on, as you know. I think it's a more vibrant place as well. I think I think the diversity has certainly influenced the way in which the university thinks and the way in which we work as an institution. So that's positive. And I think that we've got a long way to go. I'm not suggesting that we've got it all right. But I think there's a commitment there. And I think there's a passion to move in that direction. So, our job now is to make sure that that does happen, working through students and staff, and making this place what we want it to be. It's in our gift. It's genuinely in our gift to create the sort of university that we want. And the new strategy is designed to try and do that, to give us the map, the roadmap and the hooks to be able to make a big difference.
Well, for a few students who have been studying at UWE, so I have a friend who did her undergrad here and she's currently doing her PhD. So you mentioned that, so that diversity is not, in terms of staffing, is not cut across all programs. For someone that feels that way, and for someone that feels like, the university is not doing anything, what would you say to that student? Because they don't see the work that happens behind the scenes. So what would you say to them? Is the university indeed trying to employ more BAME staff across all programs? Or is it just, is it based on the field?
It's a combination of all of those things, I think. Yes, we're trying to increase the representation in our staffing at all levels, and the reason for that obviously is that if you see someone who is like you in those positions, then you're more likely to feel at home and comfortable. 100%. And there's something about role modeling there. The university's turnover of academic staff is relatively low. So the way in which we can increase both intake is by getting slightly bigger and then having more staff. And then we're doing a piece of work which is about recruitment and retention, promotion, which is about targeting and trying to seek out that diversity within populations to try and see whether or not we can encourage them to come into the university. And that's partly about growing our own and promoting, and partly about looking beyond the university to bring in. But it is quite slow. And part of that is that we can't just go out and recruit lots of new people. We have to have a budget, we have to have a business case, we have to have all sorts of things. But what we can do is look at the recruitment process to make sure that that's fair and transparent, and then start targeting. So a positive approach to recruitment rather than perhaps not positively promoting that diversity. It's slow, and it doesn't take, I mean, it's something that we're going to have to continually check to make sure we're making progress, and we are. But from a student's perspective, who are here for 3 years, 4 years, maybe, I can see why students look and go, well, it hasn't changed much, and I absolutely understand that. My hope is that where we've got, and part of this is about celebrating and promoting and profiling where we have got that difference. So we've got research. One of our strongest research environments is actually in artificial intelligence and big data. And there are about 40 research staff in there, 40 academic research staff, led by a Professor Lukeman, who is Nigerian. And his whole team is BME, near enough. And they are...
I know them.
Sorry?
I know them.
You know them. They are unbelievable.
They are.
Absolutely remarkable. And the stuff that they're researching blows your mind, or blows my mind. And yet for most students, they wouldn't know.
Mm.
So there's something about how do we profile the power of that research, the power of those individuals, so that diversity can be celebrated. But more importantly as well, the research that they're doing can be seen, because this is cutting edge stuff across the university. We've got great examples. But maybe that's not spotted by students in enough detail for them to be inspired by that. And whenever I go down to their labs, they happen to be in the floor below, in X block below my office. Yeah, levels 3 and 6 they're on. Whenever I go in there, it does blow me away. The same as robotics does and science does. We've got some real nuggets in there with great role models, but the students might not see them.
How are you encouraging staff to engage with the EDI strategy implementation? So for those who don't know, the EDI strategy is the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion strategy.
So it's a relatively, the one that we've just signed off, and we'll have an action plan attached to it, is launched in September this year. And it's aligned to the 2030 strategy, obviously, and is aligned to our people strategy. So it all joins up, and our learning and teaching strategy. What we're going to be asking everybody to do is to engage with that strategy and ask a very fundamental, simple question. And the question is, where do I fit in this strategy, and what can I do to deliver this strategy? Two really, really important questions that are focused on the individual. And that's the start of the conversation then around, well, how are we then going to work together to create an inclusive environment that is really inclusive, and to address where we have deficits, so where we have a gap, what are you going to do personally? I sit on the board of United Hospitals Bristol and Western board, so one of the big NHS trusts. And whenever we interview now a consultant, we ask what examples they can give us around how they have engaged in inclusivity, diversity, and what they have personally done. Mm. It is probably the one question that floors nearly all of them. Yeah. And that's because it's not one that they were expecting, not a question that they were expecting at all. But we ask it, and you'd think they'd learn because the word would get out, but actually it still floors them. And I want to ask the same question in the university. So what are we going to do as individuals, and then what are we going to do collectively to address what we need to address? And that is about a challenge around things like reverse mentoring, things like mentoring, coaching. It's also about having conversations and not shying away from those. So the strategy is designed, of course, against a set of very tough metrics, hard data that can demonstrate improvement, but it's also about the cultural, behavioural piece, which is slightly more difficult to get hold of, and is going to be around those conversations and what are you going to do. And in the conversations that managers and people leaders are having on a monthly basis, it will be one of the key things that we keep coming back to. And that's going to be really, really important, that we don't allow time to march on and we haven't revisited it. What have you done? Yeah. So it will become part of PDRs, performance development reviews.
So the yearly ones for those who are permanent staff.
Yeah, and it won't be yearly, it will be monthly.
Fantastic. Music to my ears. Okay.
It will, because annually is too long.
Yes, 100%. And, I just wonder, because we have a very good staff team, but my worry is within the staff community, there's still people who believe that it is not their responsibility. It doesn't fall within their remit to champion any EDI strand, and it shouldn't be the case.
No, it absolutely shouldn't. We should be championing all students and all staff, because that's what will make the university a great place. I mean, we can build as many smart buildings as we can afford. That doesn't make a university. What makes a university are the people in it. Mm-hmm. And the people in it can make it an inspiring, buzzy place where great things happen, or not. Where you have people who don't feel they can contribute, or they don't feel that they can advance because of an environment that's not inclusive. So for me, that inclusivity bit takes us right back to the beginning, which is around opportunity and talent. Mm-hmm. Our job, collectively, is to build talent and to build the next generation. Because that generation, you are going to be the leaders. You will be the generation that will have leadership roles. And I have to say, you've got quite a lot of stuff to sort out that this generation hasn't helped with necessarily. Yeah. So, and that's always the way, but we need some really smart people and good leaders to get to that next bit. And that's, we know what the issues are. Climate change is a massive issue and will impact in a million different ways across the world. We know that pandemics can knock society off its feet very, very quickly. And that's global. We know that water security, food security is going to be a massive issue. And we also know that there are opportunities within this as technology advances, as we get more involved in building different futures through industry, then people are going to have to change. So, we've got one planet. So let's work out how to look after the planet. Let's look after how we look after people, and not accept we can't do things. Because we're going to have to use everybody's talent and brain power to sort out some of the things that we're having to face up to. So that's, I guess we've got a bit to play in that. We've got a part to play in that through research and learning and teaching and educating. And then individuals have to take responsibility as well.
That leads me to my special question for you.
Special question.
If you had a magic wand,
yeah,
like they do in the movies, impossible, right? What is that thing that you would want to do, either within the university or Bristol, whatever it be?
Wow, what a question.
So no barriers, nothing.
I would like to eliminate discrimination and an environment where people are not accepted. I think it's such a huge barrier for us as a society to work out how are we going to work together effectively. And that's key, because we spend an awful lot of time working out what makes us different. And that's just a waste of time. So I guess my big challenge would be, if I had a magic wand, I want everybody to feel fulfilled and engaged with what they're doing and proud of what they achieve. And if everybody got into that space, it would be a much more positive environment. We'd all be happier, I'm sure. And we'd probably achieve more. We'd probably achieve more. And I'm really, really lucky. I have never, ever, in all of my working life, not wanted to go into work, not wanted to do the job I was doing at the time. And I want everybody to have that feeling. So, and I started work when I was 8, doing paper rounds, and then working in petrol stations and being a cleaner, and working on, 8.
Oh my goodness.
Used to deliver papers in the morning on my bike. So throughout my life, I've never been, I guess a bit like you, I've learned, you have to work if you want to get somewhere, want to get something. And then secondly, whatever you do, enjoy it. And never regret it. So I've never got to the point where I've said, oh, I can't do this anymore. And that's a great feeling. That is a really wonderful feeling to really enjoy what you do. And I want all students and everybody to have that experience, and because that is great. And that's not to say it's easy, and it's not to say that there aren't, days when you really struggle to work out how to do something. But human beings are really good at solving problems.
Do you agree with people that say it's easier said than done? Like, it's easier to give up than to keep going?
Yes, sometimes that's some people will be in that mindset and will get into that place. They usually, my hope is that there's usually somebody around them that can help them out of that space.
Yeah.
Because it's not fulfilling. It really doesn't help you in the longer term. At the end of the day, if everybody at the end of the day look back and say, what have I achieved today, and am I happy with what I did? And the answer to that, in an ideal world, the answer to that should be, yeah, I've achieved something and I'm really proud of what I've done. Otherwise, you end up being pretty miserable.
Yeah.
And life is you know, and sometimes people aren't honest with students. Life is tough.
That's the
You know, there are bumps in the road, and we have to work out how to navigate our way through, around them and through them, and pick ourselves up. Not everything is always easy and fantastic. Life can be tough. My hope is that we give students an opportunity to develop the resilience, to be able to cope with that, and that it carries them then through their lives. That they've got enough about them to be able to support themselves when they get into that difficult space. And we all will. Everybody will get into that difficult space. And it's our ability to navigate through it, get through the bumps.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve.
Pleasure, as ever.
We had a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Steve. Yes, this was great, and I am so grateful that you're kickstarting this project for me. I think this was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
That's a pleasure, and good luck. Good luck for your year.